Last Thursday evening, I walked into my own house and discovered my wife was not planning to fake a breakup with me. Not because she actually wanted to leave, but because her friends convinced her it would be a fun little test to see how much I really loved her. I had come home early from work, something I rarely do. The house felt quiet, but I could hear muffled voices coming from the living room. My wife was on speakerphone. Andy recognized the voices immediately. Her three closest friends, the same ones who had been filling her head with toxic relationship advice for months. I stopped in the hallway, hidden from view, but close enough to hear every word clearly. What I heard made my blood run cold. Just tell him you need space to think about your future together. One of them was saying, men never appreciate what they have until it's threatened. Exactly. Another chimed in. My cousin did this with her boyfriend last year. He practically begged her to stay and bought her a new car the next week. My wife's voice came through, uncertain, but interested. But what if he just agrees? What if he doesn't fight for me? Trust me, honey. No man lets his wife walk away without a fight. He'll probably cry and promise to change everything about himself. I felt my jaw clench. These women were treating my marriage like some kind of social experiment. But the worst part was hearing my wife actually considering it. I don't know, girls. It feels wrong to manipulate him like that. It's not manipulation, the first friend insisted. It's testing his commitment. You deserve to know where you stand in his priorities. Look, if he really loves you, he'll fight for you. If he doesn't, then you'll know the truth about your marriage. I heard my wife sigh deeply. When should I do it? This weekend. Make it dramatic, but not too over the top. Tell him you've been thinking and you're not sure if you're happy anymore. My hands formed fists at my sides. These women were encouraging my wife to blow up our marriage for entertainment. But what shocked me most was that she was actually listening. Remember, the key is to stay calm and serious. Don't give him any hints that it's a test. Let him sweat for a few days, then see how hard it works to win you back and document everything. Another friend added with a look. This is going to be such good drama. I had heard enough. I quietly backed away from the hallway and slipped out the front door. My mind racing. Part of me wanted to storm in there and confront all of them immediately. But something held me back. A better idea was forming. If my wife wanted to play games with our marriage, if she wanted to test me, then she was about to learn a very important lesson about her husband. I wasn't the type of man who begged or pleaded. I wasn't going to dance like a puppet for her entertainment. I got back in my car and drove around the block, giving myself time to think. By the time I returned home 20 minutes later, her friends had left and she was in the kitchen preparing dinner like nothing had happened. Hey honey, you're home early, she said, kissing my cheek with what I now realized was completely fake affection. Tfik was light today, I replied, studying her face. She looked nervous, fidgeting with the kitchen towel in her hands. During dinner, she was unusually quiet, clearly rehearsing whatever script her friends had given her. I ate calmly, making normal conversation. But inside I was planning my response to her little test. That night, as we lay in bed, she was restless beside me. I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head, probably wondering if she should go rough with her friend's ridiculous plan. I already knew she would. The seed had been planted, and women like her friends don't let their victims back out easily. They would keep pushing until she followed through. But here's what my wife and her amateur psychologist friends didn't understand about me. I don't play games with people I love, Andy sure don't tolerate people who try to play games with me. If she wanted to test whether I would fight for our marriage, she was about to discover that I don't fight for relationships with people who don't want to be in them. I don't chase, I don't beg, and I certainly don't dance for anyone's amusement. Saturday was coming and I was going to be ready for her little performance. But my response was going to be nothing like what she or her friends expected. They wanted to see me desperate and pleading. Instead, they were about to meet a man who knew his worth and refused to be manipulated. The test was coming, but I had news for my wife. She was about to find out that some tests don't have the answers you expect. Saturday morning arrived right on schedule, and so did my wife's performance. I was in the garage organizing some tools when she appeared in the doorway, looking like she had been rehearsing her lines in the mirror. We need to talk, she said, her voice carrying that serious tone her friends had probably coached her to use. I looked up from the workbench, completely calm. Sure, what's on your mind? She took a deep breath, and I could see her steeling herself for the big moment. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about us, about our marriage, and I'm not sure I'm happy anymore. I nodded slowly as if I was processing this shocking revelation for the first time. What specifically has you feeling unhappy? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She had probably expected me to immediately start panicking or asking what I had done wrong. It's just I feel like we've fallen into this routine and I don't know if this is what I want for the rest of my life. I think I need some space to figure things out. Space, I repeated, setting down the wrench in my hand. What kind of space are we talking about here? Maybe we should take a break. You know, spend some time apart so I can think clearly about what I really want. I wiped my hands on a rag and leaned against the workbench. How long of a break? She blinked, clearly not expecting such a straightforward response. I don't know. A few weeks, maybe a month. A month? I said, nodding thoughtfully. That's reasonable. When do you want to start this break? Her mouth opened slightly. This wasn't going according to script at all. You're okay with this? I shrugged. You said you need space to think. If that's what you need, then that's what you need. I'm not going to force you to stay in a marriage that doesn't make you happy. The color drained from her face. But don't you want to talk about this? Try to work things out. What's to work out? You just told me you're unhappy and need space. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. I could see panic starting to creep into her eyes. This was supposed to be the part where I fought for her, where I promised to change everything about myself to make her happy. So, you're just giving up onus. I'm respecting your decision. You're an adult who knows what she wants. If you want space, you've got it. I walked past her toward the house. I'll start moving my things to the guest room today so you can have the master bedroom. We should probably figure out how to split the bills during this break period. Wait, she called after me. You're moving to the guest room right now. Well, you said you wanted space. I assumed that meant physical space, too. She followed me into the house. Her composure completely shattered. I didn't mean immediately. I thought we could discuss the details. The details seem pretty clear to me. You want a break from our marriage to think about whether you want to be with me. The sooner we start, the sooner you'll have your answer. I began pulling clothes from our shared dresser with methodical calm. She stood in the doorway watching me, clearly struggling with how far off script this had gone. Don't you have any questions? Any feelings about this? I paused and looked at her directly. Of course, I have feelings. But you've made it clear that those feelings aren't enough to make you happy in this marriage. So, what's the point of discussing them? That's not what I said. You said you weren't sure if you wanted to spend the rest of your life with me. That's pretty definitive. Her phone buzzed. Probably one of her friends checking on how the test was going. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'm going to call the guys and see if anyone wants to grab dinner tonight, I said casually. Since we're on a break, I figure we should both start adjusting to being single again. Sleeing. The word came out as almost a whisper. That's what a break is, right? Taking time to experience life without each other. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to salvage the situation without admitting it was all fake. I think you're misunderstanding what I meant by a break. Am I? Because it sounds like you want the freedom to decide whether you want to be married to me, which means we're essentially separated until you make that decision. She sat down heavily on the bed, watching me pack with growing alarm. Where are you going for dinner? Not sure yet. Probably that new steakhouse downtown. I haven't been out with the guys in months. The truth was, I had no specific plans, but I could see her imagining me out there acting like a newly single man, and it was eating her alive. You seem awfully calm about all this, she said, her voice cracking slightly. I stopped packing and looked at her with what I hoped appeared to be genuine concern. Would you prefer that I was upset? Because I can be upset if that would make you feel better about your decision. No, that's not. I just expected you to have more of a reaction. My reaction is to give you exactly what you asked for. Isn't that what you wanted? She didn't answer, just stared at me as I continued moving my things. Her phone buzzed again. And this time she ignored it completely. The test was in full swing now, but the results were nothing like what she or her friends had anticipated. Instead of a desperate husband begging her to reconsider, she was watching her marriage dissolve with clinical efficiency. And the best part was it was all her idea. By Sunday evening, my wife was clearly in full panic mode. I had gone out with my friends as promised, stayed out until midnight, and came home acting like nothing unusual was happening. She was waiting up for me, something she never did when we were supposedly happily married. "How was your night?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Great, really great actually. I forgot how much fun it was to just be out without worrying about getting home to anyone." Her face tightened. "What do you mean by that?" "Well, we're on a break, right? So, I don't have to check in or worry about making someone else happy. It's liberating." I could see her struggling with the monster she had created. Her phone had been buzzing all weekend, probably her friends demanding updates on how their brilliant plan was working. Monday morning, I was making coffee when she appeared in her robe, looking like she hadn't slept much. "I've been thinking about what I said on Saturday," she began carefully. "Oh good. You're making progress. That's the whole point of taking a break. Maybe I was too hasty. Maybe we should try counseling instead." I turned to face her, coffee mug in hand. "Counseling? But you said you weren't sure if you wanted to spend your life with me. What would we counsel about?" I think I was just stressed. Work has been overwhelming and I might have taken it out on our marriage. "Stress," I repeated thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Stress can definitely make you question fundamental things like whether you love your husband." She winced. "I never said I didn't love you." "No, but you did say you weren't happy and needed to figure out what you wanted. Those are pretty serious concerns that probably can't be fixed with a few counseling sessions." I poured my coffee and started heading toward the door. Besides, now that I've had a couple days to think about it, maybe this break is exactly what we both need. "What do you mean?" "Well, I've realized how much energy I was putting into trying to make someone else happy who apparently wasn't happy anyway. It's nice to just focus on myself for a change." Her mouth fell open. "You saying you like being on a break?" "I'm saying I'm learning a lot about myself and what I will and won't accept in a relationship." That afternoon, she called me at work, something she rarely did. "Can we have dinner together tonight just to talk?" "I don't know if that's a good idea. You said you needed space to think clearly and spending time together would just muddy the waters." "Please, just dinner." I let out a long sigh. "All right, but only if you're sure it won't interfere with your decision-making process." During dinner that night, she was trying every angle she could think of to walk back her fake breakup without admitting it was fake. I realized I might have been too dramatic on Saturday. Maybe I don't need a full break. Maybe just some changes in how we do things. "What kind of changes?" I asked, cutting my steak with deliberate precision. "I don't know. Date nights, weekend trips, things to reconnect. Those sound like things we could have done before you decided you were unhappy with our marriage." "What's different now?" She was trapped in her own logic. If she admitted she wasn't really unhappy, she'd have to explain why she faked the whole thing. I guess I just needed to almost lose something to realize how much it meant to me. I set down my fork and looked at her seriously. "But you haven't almost lost anything. We're still married. We're just taking a break so you can figure out if you want to stay married. Maybe I don't need the full month to think about it." "Are you sure?" "Because flip-flopping on major life decisions seems like something you should really think through carefully." Her frustration was becoming visible. "You're being deliberately difficult. I'm being supportive of your needs. You said you weren't happy and needed space. I'm making sure you get exactly what you asked for." By Wednesday, she was getting desperate. She tried a different approach. "I think maybe the problem isn't our marriage. Maybe it's that we didn't spend enough quality time together because of work and other obligations." "That could be it." I agreed. "Although, you did say you weren't sure if you wanted to spend the rest of your life with me. That seems like more than a scheduling issue." "I was just feeling overwhelmed." "I didn't mean it literally." "Oh, so when you said you needed space to think about whether you wanted to be married to me, that was metaphorical." She opened and closed her mouth like a fish. There was no good answer to that question that didn't expose her lie. Thursday night, she escalated things. "What if I said I made a mistake? What if I said I didn't want to break anymore?" I looked up from the book I was reading in the guest room. Then I'd say you need to be really sure about that decision. What do you mean? Well, you've already shown me that when life gets stressful, your instinct is to question our entire marriage. How do I know that won't happen again the next time you have a bad week? She stared at me, realizing I was turning her own fake concerns into real relationship issues. You're punishing me. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Friday morning, I overheard her on the phone with her friends again. This time, the conversation was very different. Fizz isn't working at all. He's not fighting for me. He's acting like he's actually relieved to be separated. Maybe you need to tell him you're thinking about divorce, one of them suggested. That'll definitely get a reaction. I smiled to myself. They were about to escalate their stupid game to a level where I could really show them what kind of man-thie we're dealing with. Sure enough, Friday evening, she sat me down with the most serious expression yet. I've been thinking during this break, and I'm wondering if maybe we should consider making this separation permanent. I nodded slowly, as if considering this carefully, like a divorce, maybe. I mean, if we're both happier apart. You know what? You might be right. Her eyes went wide. I've been thinking the same thing. Actually, this week has shown me a lot about what I want in a partner, and maybe we're just not compatible long-term. She looked like I had slapped her. This was supposed to be the nuclear option that brought me crawling back, not the statement that made me agree with her. You want a divorce? I want to be with someone who's sure they want to be with me. And you've made it pretty clear that's not you. The test was backfiring spectacularly, and we both knew it. Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after her initial performance, my wife was pacing around the kitchen like a caged animal. I was calmly eating breakfast and reading the news on my tablet when she finally cracked. Okay, stop. Just stop this whole thing. I looked up from my tablet. Stop what? This act? This whole calm, accepting routine you've been doing all week. I'm not sure what you mean. You said you wanted a break, possibly a divorce. I'm giving you what you asked for. She slammed her coffee mug down on the counter. No, you're not. You're supposed to fight for us. You're supposed to care that your wife is leaving you. But my wife isn't leaving me. My wife is making an informed decision about whether she wants to stay married to me. I respect that process. There is no process. She exploded. God, you're being so frustrating. I set down my tablet and looked at her with genuine curiosity. Help me understand something. Are you angry because I'm not fighting for our marriage or because I'm respecting your stated wishes? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. The trap was perfect and she could see it. I'm angry because you don't seem to care about what specifically about losing me. I stood up and walked around the kitchen island until I was facing her directly. Here's what I care about. I care about being with someone who wants to be with me. I care about having a partner who doesn't need to threaten our marriage to feel valued. And I care about not wasting my time on someone who isn't sure they love me. Her face went pale. I never said I didn't love you. No, but you did say you weren't sure if you wanted to spend your life with me. And honestly, after this week, I'm starting to understand why. What does that mean? I leaned against the counter, studying her face carefully. It means I've learned something important about you. When things get difficult, your instinct isn't to work together or communicate. Your instinct is to threaten the foundation of our relationship. That's not fair, isn't it? You literally told me you wanted to separate so you could decide if you wanted to be married to me. That's not a communication strategy, that's emotional manipulation. Her eyes widened. The word manipulation hit exactly where I intended. I wasn't manipulating you. Really? Because from where I sit, it looks like you created a crisis to get attention and test my devotion. That's pretty much the textbook definition of manipulation. She was starting to panic now. You retwisting everything around. Am I? Let me ask you something direct. Do you actually want a divorce? Do you actually want to separate? Were you actually unhappy in our marriage? She hesitated just long enough to confirm what I already knew. Things weren't perfect. But were you genuinely considering leaving me last Saturday morning? Another hesitation. I was confused. I nodded slowly. Confused about what exactly? About whether you really appreciated me, so you decided to threaten our marriage to find out. I didn't threaten anything. I just said I needed space to think about whether you wanted to spend your life with me. Most people would call that a threat. She was backing herself into a corner with every answer. You're making it sound worse than it was. How should it sound? Because from my perspective, my wife told me she was unhappy with our marriage and wanted to separate. I can't imagine a way to make that sound better. Her phone buzzed on the counter between us. Without thinking, she glanced at it and I saw her face change. Your friend's checking in on how the test is going. She went completely white. What? The test? The one where you fake a breakup to see how much I'll fight for you. How's it working out? Her mouth fell open. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because I heard every word of your phone conversation last Thursday. The one where your friends convinced you to test my commitment by threatening to leave me. She staggered backward like I had physically hit her. You heard? I heard everything. The fake drama, the coaching on what to say, even the part where they told you to document it for entertainment. Tears started forming in her eyes, but I wasn't finished. So, let me ask you again. Were you genuinely unhappy in our marriage? Or were you running a psychological experiment on your husband for your friend's amusement? It wasn't like that. What was it like then? They said it would help me understand how you really felt about me. I let out a bitter laugh. And how do I really feel about you? I don't know anymore. You want to know how I feel? I feel like I've been married to someone who would rather manipulate me than talk to me. I feel like my wife values her friends' opinions more than our relationship. And I feel like I've spent a week being tested like a lab rat by someone who promised to love and respect me. She was crying now, but I wasn't done. The worst part isn't even that you did it. The worst part is that when it didn't work the way you expected, you tried to escalate it by threatening divorce. You were willing to blow up our marriage for a game. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know it was wrong. Do you? Because you spend a week doubling down on the lie instead of coming clean. I didn't know how to fix it. You could have told the truth at any point. Instead, you kept digging the hole deeper. She was sobbing now, the weight of what she had done finally hitting her. But I had been planning this moment for a week, and I wasn't going to let emotion derail it. Here's what's going to happen now. You're going to call your friends and tell them exactly how their brilliant test worked out. You're going to explain how their manipulation nearly destroyed your marriage. And then you're going to decide whether you want to be married to me or married to their approval. I choose you. I choose our marriage. That's easy to say now, but you chose their game over our relationship once already. Why should I believe this time is different? She had no answer for that, and we both knew it. The test was over, but the real consequences were just beginning. That evening, fate handed me the perfect opportunity for the next phase of my plan. My wife's friends were hosting their monthly dinner party, and we were both invited. Under normal circumstances, I would have made an excuse not to go. But these weren't normal circumstances. We should probably skip tonight, my wife said nervously as she got ready. After everything that's happened. Actually, I think we should go, I said, adjusting my collar in the mirror. I have some things I'd like to discuss with your friends. Her face went pale. What kind of things? Oh, just how their relationship advice worked out for us. The dinner party was in full swing when we arrived. The same 3 friends who had orchestrated this whole mess were there along with several other couples. Perfect. My wife tried to steer us toward a quiet corner, but I had other plans. Ladies, I said, walking directly up to the 3 conspirators. I wanted to thank you for your excellent marriage counseling last week. They exchanged nervous glances. What marriage counseling? One of them asked innocently. The phone consultation where you convinced my wife to fake a breakup with me to test my devotion. Brilliant strategy, really. The conversation around us started to die down as other guests tuned in. I'm not sure what you mean, another friend said, but her voice was shaky. Really? Because I heard every word of your coaching session. The part about making her threaten to leave me. The suggestion to document it for drama, even the backup plan to escalate to divorce threats if I didn't react the way you wanted. Now we had everyone's attention. My wife was trying to disappear into the floor. The best part, I continued loud enough for the whole room to hear, was when she actually followed through with your advice and I called her bluff. You should have seen how panicked she got when I started agreeing with her about the separation. One of the husbands in the room let out a low whistle. You guys told her to fake a breakup. It wasn't fake. The first friend protested weakly. We just thought she should test his commitment. I laughed. Test my commitment by lying to me and manipulating me? That's your idea of healthy relationship advice. Every relationship needs testing, she said defensively. Does yours? I asked, turning to her husband. Did your wife test your commitment by threatening to leave you for entertainment? Her husband was staring at his wife with a new expression. Did you? The room was deadly silent now. I could see my wife trying to signal me to stop, but I was just getting started. Here's what I learned about tests. I announced to the room, when someone tests you, they're telling you they don't trust you. When someone manipulates you, they're telling you they don't respect you. And when someone lies to you for a week straight, they're telling you exactly who they are. That's not fair. One of the friends said, we were just trying to help her feel more secure in her marriage by teaching her to be manipulative and dishonest. That's your version of security. Another husband spoke up. Wait, so this was all fake? The whole separation thing completely fabricated. I confirmed a week-long psychological experiment designed by these 3 relationship experts here. The friends were starting to look desperate. You're making it sound worse than it was. Am I? Because my wife spent a week lying to my face, threatening our marriage, and escalating to divorce talk, all because you 3 convinced her it would be fun to mess with her husband's emotions. The room erupted in murmurs. Other wives were looking at the 3 friends with disgust. Their husbands were looking at them with suspicion. Maybe we should go, my wife whispered desperately. Why? We're just getting to the good part. Tell everyone how your test worked out, ladies. Did I beg and plead like you predicted? They remained silent. Well, let me fill everyone in. When my wife told me she wanted to separate, I helped her pack. When she said she needed space, I gave her all the space she wanted. When she threatened divorce, I agreed it might be for the best. The crowd was hanging on every word now. Turns out when you call someone's bluff, they panic. Funny how that works. One of the friends made a last desperate attempt at defense. We were just trying to make sure she knew her worth. It looked directly at her. Her worth isn't determined by how desperately her husband reacts to manipulation. Her worth comes from being honest, trustworthy, and respectful in her relationships. 3 things your advice completely undermined. The party was effectively over now. People were making excuses to leave, and the 3 friends were being pointedly ignored by everyone else. As we walked to the car, my wife was silent until we got inside. Did you have to humiliate them like that? I started the engine and looked at her seriously. They humiliated themselves. I just made sure everyone knew who was really behind our marriage problems. The message was clear. Actions have consequences. And her friends had just learned what happens when you mess with someone else's marriage. The ride home from the dinner party was silent until we pulled into our driveway. My wife sat in the passenger seat, staring at her hands. I know you're angry, she finally said. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. I replied, turning off the engine. But we need to have a conversation about what happens next. Inside the house, I sat down at the kitchen table and gestured for her to join me. This was the moment everything would be decided. Your friends won't be calling you anymore, I said matter-of-factly. After tonight, they'll probably blame you for making them look bad instead of taking responsibility for their toxic advice. She nodded miserably. I know. Good, because that tells you everything you need to know about the kind of people they are. I leaned forward, making sure she understood the gravity of what I was about to say. Here's where we stand. You made a choice to prioritize their entertainment over our marriage. You lied to me for a week straight. You escalated fake problems into real threats. And when I didn't react the way you expected, you doubled down instead of coming clean. Tears started flowing again. But I continued. So now you get to make another choice. The most important one of your life. What choice? You can choose to rebuild this marriage on honesty and respect, which means cutting those toxic influences out of your life completely. No more girls' nights with them. No more phone calls asking for advice. No more letting them poison your head with their manipulation tactics. She was listening intently now. Or you can choose to keep those friendships and lose this marriage because I will not be tested, manipulated, or disrespected again. Not by you and certainly not by your friends. I choose you, she said quickly. I choose our marriage. That's what you said yesterday. But choosing me means more than just words. It means proving that you understand what you did wrong and why it can never happen again. How do I prove that? I had been thinking about this all week. First, you're going to call each of those friends tomorrow and tell them you won't be continuing those friendships. You're going to explain that their advice nearly destroyed your marriage and that you take full responsibility for following it. Her eyes widened. All three of them. All three in front of me. So I know you actually did it. She whispered. Second, we're going to marriage counseling. Real counseling, not the amateur psychology your friends were peddling. Because you need to understand why you thought manipulation was acceptable in the first place. She nodded eagerly. Yes, absolutely. Third, you're going to rebuild my trust through your actions, not your promises. That means complete transparency about where you go, who you talk to, and what advice you receive about our relationship. For how long? I looked at her seriously. For as long as it takes for me to believe that you've learned from this mistake. She was quiet for a long moment, processing the conditions. And if I do all of that, you'll forgive me. Forgiveness isn't something you earn by completing a checklist. It's something that happens when I see real change in your behavior and attitude. I stood up from the table, but I will say this. The fact that you're willing to cut ties with those friends tells me you might actually understand how serious this is. I do understand. I really do. We'll see. Because understanding it intellectually is different from changing your behavior permanently. Over the next few days, she followed through on everything I had asked. The phone calls to her friends were awkward and painful, but she made them. She found a marriage counselor and scheduled our first appointment. She even deleted their numbers from her phone without me asking. But the real test came 2 weeks later when one of those friends tried to reconcile, claiming she had been misunderstood at the dinner party. My wife showed me the text message and asked what I thought she should do. What do you think you should do? I asked back. I think someone who tries to save face instead of taking responsibility for their actions hasn't learned anything from what happened. I smiled for the first time since this whole ordeal began. That's exactly right. She blocked the number without hesitation. 6 months later, our marriage was stronger than it had been in years. Not because we had survived a crisis, but because we had established clear boundaries about what we would and wouldn't accept from each other. My wife learned that real security in a relationship comes from honest communication, not manipulation tactics. And I learned that sometimes the best way to fight for your marriage is to refuse to play games that undermine it. The test was over, but the lesson was permanent. Some boundaries, once crossed, change everything. The key is making sure they change things for the better. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.